It's hard to believe.
Just strolled right back into a crime scene. Now, who'd do such a thing?
It's just all-out war. I can't think of any other word for it. Who are these people? I feel overmatched.
Can't stop what's coming. It ain't all waiting on you. That's vanity.
No Country for Old Men tells the story of Llewellyn Moss, a charming, brave, yet regular character from West Texas who comes across a cartel drug deal gone wrong, with a payment of $2 million being left in its wake. Llewellyn takes the money and runs, setting off a chase where a ruthless cartel-hired assassin named Anton Chigurh attempts to recover the money. The county sheriff, Ed Tom Bell, tries to save Llewellyn from this doomed chase, seemingly always one step behind him. Throughout the film, we see Ed Tom slowly lose his grip on the dilemma, where many people, such as Llewellyn's wife, rely on his strength and experience. However, people like Anton are ruthless and come from a time of criminals with whom Ed Tom is no longer familiar. He has aged and in recent years has seen crimes unlike any other. As the world changes, Ed Tom discovers he is no longer fit as a cop. In his words, he feels overmatched.
Feel overmatched. Hard to believe. It's hard to believe.
The world is hard to believe. The fundamental theme of No Country for Old Men is the changing world. Ed Tom and others like him have a place in it, but not always in the way that they want. Ed Tom primarily takes on this theme, becoming a virtual medium that allows us to observe how this unpleasantly shaped world affects those increasingly obscure and lost. His views remind me of Rorschach from the graphic novel Watchmen. He is appalled by the New World's sin, violence, and immorality. He takes comfort in simpler, more nostalgic times, just like Ed Tom in his opening monologue about the past, the old sheriffs, the old world. Ed Tom fails to save Llewellyn, as Llewellyn dies in an unceremonious shootout, but he succeeds in one thing: finding out when it's time to hang his hat up. The movie itself is excellent, and even its DVD release describes it as a gritty action thriller with, quote, a heart-stopping final moment. That sounds intense. Well, then, let's take a close look at this promised heart-stopping final moment. It occurs shortly after Ed Tom has decided to retire from being a sheriff since he was 25 years old. He returns home to his wife, Loretta, unsure where to go next. We begin with a slow cross dissolve from the previous scene, into a close-up shot of Ed Tom. There isn't any establishing shot, so we assume Ed Tom is at home or somewhere indoors. The camera is stationary, and Ed Tom has a neutral expression as he presumably looks out a window to the countryside. The camera is placed so we can see through the window behind Ed Tom where two trees stand. One is dead and one is alive. This reflects the plot's dichotomy in a perfect sense. The old, withered tree represents Ed Tom. He is aged and tilted from the constant tide of this new reality. The lush tree represents those in the film who fit more for this new world. They're new, strong, and ready. The camera then cuts to a more open shot of the room. We see Ed Tom in his house, sitting in his dining room, while Loretta grabs a fresh pitcher of coffee and brings it to the table. The camera slowly moves in behind Loretta as she approaches the table, bringing her and Ed Tom into a two-shot, where Loretta is only seen from behind. This helps us focus on Ed Tom, who is still looking out the window. The camera slowly moves with Loretta, a superb part of the film's slow and paced composition. A picture hanging on the wall to the right of Ed Tom shows a road leading into the open and mountainous country ahead. The image is symbolic, representing the road ahead of Ed Tom and a great pass obscuring the rest of the road he must go through. The dining room itself has a great set design. The arrangement of the props conveys to the viewer that Loretta runs the home. For example, the lamp to the right of Ed Tom, which is made of a pitcher similar to the one Loretta is using. This is symbolic because it screams Loretta, whereas Ed Tom has no mark. All of the kitchenware, cups, and plates match each other, something that Ed Tom did not do as his time was taken up by being sheriff. These elements are excellent part of the mise-en-scene, or the things intentionally put within the frame to convey meaning and characterize the actors. This is also our first time seeing Ed Tom in everyday plain clothing. He no longer stands out as the sheriff. His costume design evokes an everyday man, now becoming a spectator of the world around him from his own home. Notably, Ed Tom is seen wearing a watch, which he wears throughout the movie, but for most of it, the watch is obscured by the long sleeves of his sheriff uniform. Now that he is wearing plain everyday clothing, Ed Tom's watch is visible. He has time for things now, and his job no longer eclipses that. The room is spacious and open, as is the outside, yet Ed Tom seems unable to figure out where he fits in. He discusses with Loretta what he should do with his spare time, such as riding horses around the countryside or helping around the house.
Maybe I'll go riding.
Okay.
What do you think?
Well, I can't plan your day.
Maybe I'll help out here then.
Better not.
Loretta refuses to ride with him because she still works, and she politely refuses his help around the house because he doesn't know her system. Ed Tom is lost, and his somewhat defeated facial expression and low voice reflect that characterization, which is also something that's present in his character throughout most of the movie. Loretta inquires about Ed Tom's sleep, and he remarks that he's been having dreams. Loretta says that he has time for them now, which manifests a more significant connection to the plot of No Country for Old Men. Ed Tom has retired now from the world he no longer recognizes, and now that the daily toiling of work is just a memory, he can reflect upon things that he never gave any thought to in the first place, his dreams. The camera cuts back and forth between Ed, Tom, and Loretta as they discuss this, maintaining continuity and ensuring both characters' reactions are captured. This sets a more conversational, tranquil mood for the scene, and is a feeling expressed throughout the rest of the film. Most sequences have minimal sound, dialogue, effects, and so on, save for a few. The only sound in this scene comes from their dialogue, with no effects or music. Instead, the silence is very noticeable, especially when Ed Tom pauses. This is a big part of No Country for Old Men. It rarely has a score at all, and if it does, it's quiet, tranquil, restrained. Almost everything in the film is diegetic, or can be heard by other characters. We also are almost always on the level of the characters in this film. There aren't many high-angle or low-angle shots, making everything feel very grounded and personal. This is true for this scene as well. Ed Tom begins to describe his dreams. He states that both dreams included his father, which is peculiar to him because his father passed at an age much younger than Ed Tom is now in the movie.
All right, then. Two of them both had my father in them. It's peculiar. I'm older now than he ever was by 20 years. So, in a sense, he's the younger man.
Even though his father is technically younger than him now, Ed Tom still views his dad as, well, his dad, older and wiser. He then says that his first dream involved meeting his father in town for some money, which he believes he lost. The second dream involved him and his father on horseback in older times, venturing through a pass between mountains during a snowy night. His father, wrapped in a blanket, rode ahead of him in this dream with a fire lit and a horn that Ed Tom noted. Ed Tom describes almost a feeling of comfort or reassurance, as he knew his father, riding ahead, would make a fire in the heavy cold and darkness beyond him. He knew his father would be waiting there for him when he arrived. Both of these dreams involving Ed Tom's father are no coincidence. Throughout his recent life, and primarily due to the film's events, Ed Tom has lost his way from the life his father lived all those years ago.
Grandfather was a lawman. Father, too. Me and him were sheriffs at the same time, him up in Plano and me out here.
The world was different back then, and Ed Tom feels led astray in the changing reality around him. This is represented by the first dream, where he loses the money his father gave him in town. The money may not necessarily be an important symbol. Instead, it represents Ed Tom losing what his father imprinted on him throughout his life. The heroic life of a cop seemingly withers away in the wind, and Ed Tom's purpose, as implanted by his father, is lost, like the money in town. However, Ed Tom's mind and heart know that everything is not lost. With Ed Tom retired now and one step closer to the end of his life, he finally has the clarity and peace to retrace his steps and return to the comfort of his father. The second dream shows us that Ed Tom knows his father is waiting for him wherever he is, and the pass in the mountains he was traveling through represents the clutter of the changing world around him. People like Anton, the cartel, and the loss and disappointment Ed Tom has experienced throughout the film are behind him now. He is passing through the break in the enormous mountains before him, the world he can no longer recognize as it's grown past him and people like his father. However, his father is lighting the way beyond, and Ed Tom will no longer be lost in the worsening cold and dark storm he's been voyaging through his whole life. He knows the way will be found, and he has all the time in the world now to find that way.
And in the dream, I knew that he was going on ahead. He's fixing to make a fire somewhere out there in all that dark and all that cold.
These dreams connect with multiple elements in the scene and the larger plot. The world is changing around Ed Tom, and as he returns to his home, he is lost, and he finds he might have no place there, as seen by Loretta's mark on the house and even her denial of his help. Ed Tom has a road ahead of him, and the past in the mountains, or this bleak reality, is what he found his way through by the light of his father's memory. The picture on the wall captures this journey and where it will end. Now that Ed Tom has passed through the mountains, he has time, and his now visible watch reflects his knowledge of that time. The trees behind him show that in time, Ed Tom will be guided back to his former self. An Ed Tom who is not lost and delirious by the vicious acts of the cartel, Anton, and other criminals he or others have found. He will not always be withered, like the tree on the left. As said, the theme of No Country for Old Men is guided by Ed Tom. Through him, we see how a violently changing world affects those within it. In the case of Ed Tom, he became lost, and only through his eventual failure to save Llewellyn did he realize that the world was no longer waiting on him. He must hang his hat up, even if the acts, sin, and immorality of the world are hard to believe. As the scene ends, Ed Tom finishes his monologue, and the sound of a clock ticking away becomes the sole thing the audience and Ed Tom hear.
I knew that whenever I got there, he'd be there.
Time is ticking. It's time to call it.
Then I woke up.
And the guns shout above our heads.